Welcome to the Tumbleweed Podcast, where we discuss an eclectic range of topics, including business, design, Texas culture, and everything in between.
We're two teachers that turned a side hustle into a nationally known apparel brand, and now we work with some of the biggest names in Texas. We strive to never stop exploring and continue to draw inspiration from our adventures.
So drift and explore or raise a glass. We're always ready to hang out and talk about the things that we love. So come roll with us as we drift and explore.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Tumbleweed Podcast. We've got a really special show today. Kind of got a different crew in here today, and I'm kind of excited about what we're going to talk about. We've got Fred Rodriguez.
Hey, y'all. How y'all doing?
He is going to join us. He's one of our designers on the team. We've also got Hillary Wysong.
Hey,
she
y'all.
is one of our lead designers as well. And we have McKenna Downs.
Hello.
And I am Jeb Matalich. I'm a co-owner of Tumbleweed TexStyles. Kind of do a lot of the design work and stuff. So that's basically what we're going to dive into today, is kind of talk about design and art. We get a lot of questions from people with our company, like what's your process? Kind of what's your background? How do you come up with those designs? So we're going to kind of break all that stuff down today as a design team. So I'm really excited about kind of what's going to come out of our conversation today. So yeah, I think what'll make it easiest is if we just kind of like start and kind of go around the table here and talk about kind of how we got started, what our design backgrounds are, and then kind of how we work within the team, and then we'll kind of just dive into some fun stories and talk about things in that regard. So yeah, so let's kick it off. I'll go ahead and start. Like I said, my name's Jeb, co-owner of Tumbleweed TexStyles. As far as my art background, I think, I've mentioned it in a few of the other episodes that we've had before. I grew up an artist, loving art as a young child. Won an art contest in second grade. Teacher really encouraged me to keep going with it. Got into drafting, took some art classes in middle school, was really focused in on, architectural drawing, engineering drawing in high school. That was going to be my thing. I went to college to become an architect at Texas Tech. Switch majors. Yeah, guns up. Switch majors after a couple years, but still kind of had art in my heart. It was something I really wanted to do. Got into teaching, into education, and I made sure that one of the teaching fields that I made sure that I wanted to get certified in was art. So I did go ahead and get my art certification, and I was able to teach art at a middle school about my second or third year in to teaching, and then got out of teaching art and got into history and was doing some coaching and stuff. And then I got an opportunity at Liberty High School here in Frisco to teach art full time. And so that's kind of my art career, how that kind of played out. And then Tumbleweed, you've heard Brian and I talk about it, but it was just kind of me more sketching and stuff and kind of using some of my abilities and things that I was doing that kind of caught Brian's attention. And so we kind of tied that into the company and went from there. So we kind of dig into some other stories too. But Hillary, tell us a little bit about what your background is and how you got to where you are today with the art.
Yeah. So I had similar background in that I loved art. Growing up, I was always that kid drawing, finding things in National Geographics or pictures of horses. Usually I was that girl.
Me too.
Horse girl.
Yes, I was. But loved it. And then when I got into fifth grade, actually they had an actual art class. Everything before then was like coloring sheets or something like that, but they actually had an art class. So I started to discover, like paints and clay and collage, all the different kind of mediums. And so I started to get a taste for it. I was real excited about it. My parents, luckily, were really supportive of it. And so they started finding an art teacher, like a private art teacher for me, because I just couldn't get enough. And then through middle and high school, I just took as many art classes as possible. I think in high school, they only went through art 2 or 3, but I think I went through art 6 because they kept adding on classes for me.
Whoa, go Hillary.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, so I just, that was my thing. And then
you would have been one of our favorite students.
Oh, yes. I was like full on board. Yeah. And then once I got to college, I went to Texas Tech because they had a great graphic design program, and applied to it after freshman year, got in. And then I felt like I really found my thing because it was technology and it was art, a whole lot of drawing by hand, but then, putting it in the computer, which is what I feel like I do even now. I start with hand drawing usually in a sketchbook, or now I'm going on to like my iPad and Procreate. But I still have that same passion. So that's kind of how I got my start in art and design. After graduated, I married Brian, who is the other co-owner of Tumbleweed TexStyles. So I've also been here since the beginning, 2011. And I kind of started working with Brian and Jeb. I would kind of meet with Jeb. We would talk a little bit about design, and then I would do some work in Photoshop or Illustrator as it was needed, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then now I am still on the design team and getting to work on product, but then also marketing design as well. So
yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Fred, tell us about you, man.
Mine's probably a lot different than y'all's. So I grew up not really in like artistic household. My cousin, he was like the creative person in my life that kind of, I would say, looking back, influenced me. He played acoustic guitar, introduced me to my favorite band, Dashboard Confessional. And he did a lot of graffiti and had a black book. A black book is a graffiti book where he would write all his tags in it. So that was kind of like my intro. So cool. To like seeing art, and his name was Monk. That's what he would tag. So I kind of saw that, took art in middle school, and then in high school, I was super focused on grades. So I didn't really take much art, like drawing. I only took 2 sculpture classes, and that really just kind of solidified me. For my love for art was more sculpture based in high school. Never took drawing 1, never took any drawing classes in high school. And then when I went to college, I was more fine art, sculpture based. So everything was, all my artwork was mainly sculpture, 3D. I loved minimalism, so all my sculptures were very minimalistic, and it wasn't until I graduated and started teaching that kind of graffiti, street art kind of influence came back into my life. I wanted to make artwork, but inspired by street art. So I started doing stenciling, and that's kind of actually how I learned design and Photoshop and Illustrator. Is I taught myself via YouTube, and just looking things online. I was just looking up tutorials and seeing, trying to make stencils. And then I learned how to make stencils, and then hand lettering became a big thing on Instagram and social media. And again, it kind of tied back in with that graffiti, only I was doing it on paper and pencil.
And you have some really amazing letterings that I've seen too. We have some in our house. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. But yeah, so lettering really kicked off my design and branding and logo making and mark making in that sense. And it was just like with every project, I just learned another thing about Photoshop and then another thing about Illustrator, and using the vectoring tool and all that stuff. So it was kind of going back. It started with that, my cousin's graffiti book, and ended with now I do, t-shirt designs. And so it's kind of related, but it's different. Yeah, not a conventional design background for sure. It was definitely sculpture was my first love, and then it transitioned to now I love design. And
for those of y'all who know, Fred and I actually teach at Liberty High School together. Our rooms are adjacent to each other, so all this stuff that he's talking about with learning stenciling and like lettering and things. I mean, that was going on while we were teaching. We'd get together during our lunch or conference period and talk about stuff, and we'd share Instagram handles that we liked, and the lettering thing was a big deal.
Yeah, we were always collaborating. I mean, I would always show you my street art stencils. I remember I would do First Fridays at Urban Outfitters. They used to have they would have like 4 artists in front of their store, and you can sell your artwork. Whoa, but I remember I would ask Jeb, like, hey, what do you think of this? Or check out this new stencil. Like even before I was part of the Tumbleweed team. So we've always just kind of been collaborating back and forth, or seeing your artwork with your collage transfers. So.
Yeah, Fred's my go-to if I have trouble with Photoshop or any kind of technology or Illustrator. I go to Fred next door. He's just a knock away. So, all right, McKenna, you're new to the team. Tell us about you and give us some background on how you got here in your art background.
Yeah, of course. So I kind of had, I think, a similar story to Hillary. Growing up, I was always that kid that was drawing. Again, also mostly horses, which is fun. That's right. But eventually kind of got to take some art classes in, school all growing up. So elementary school, Always loved the art period. Eventually in middle school, took another art class and I think did lots of watercoloring. We did some oil painting, which I really loved. And so growing up, my dad is actually very artistic. And so he's kind of who inspired me and got me interested in art. He does lots of cartoons. And so even in college, he had his own kind of design company doing little logos for different brands. And so just always got to watch him do that. And even, in our lunch boxes, he would do little cartoons for us and put it in there. And so I think just from a young age kind of had a love for art and just the way you could just tell stories through it and just make people smile. And that's what my dad did. And so in high school, kind of kept taking art classes, got to take some photography classes as well, which I started to really love. Now that's a part of my role here at Tumbleweed, which has been awesome. I went to Texas A&M University, whoop, and loved it so much. I got to minor in new media art there, and so took lots of graphic design classes, some just entry-level art classes as well, with kind of more so the drawing and painting and all of those things. But like Hillary was saying, eventually translating that to digital and taking classes in Illustrator and things like that, which I really started to enjoy. And I feel like there's so much to always learn when it comes to Photoshop and Illustrator, and you can never really reach the point where you know it all. But I got to continue learning through college and then applied at Tumbleweed and got to sit down with Brian and kind of hear about kind of what the company was doing and what art within Tumbleweed looked like and just the different inspirations and seeing a lot of Jeb's work and Hillary's work and Brett's work. And just kind of started to start with social media, graphics, and I do some email and then some photography, some videography, a little bit of podcasting, editing, and post-production, which has been fun to learn too. And I'm just starting in product design. So kind of getting to learn a lot and just really thankful for this opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. We're super excited to have you on the team because you've taken a lot off of our plates and you've and you've got, really good, talented eye for things. And I think you've been a really good fit. So super happy to have you guys. Inspiration. That's one of the things that we get asked about, like, where do you get your inspiration and stuff? Right. And so I just want to kind of go around and just talk briefly about inspiration and kind of where, some of the designs and some of the ideas that we come up with come from, I guess. And I'll kind of start a little bit with talking about some of that, but Fred kind of hit it on the head. As far as Tumbleweed type designs, it really started with us, I think, with a lot of the hand lettering stuff and the guys, like John Contino, Nathan Yoder, Sam Larson, people that were using text and stuff, but then also kind of intertwining a simple design element to it. The hand-drawn look, it's okay to have it be a little rough, which is good for me because I'm a hand-drawn guy. So I like to kind of that's kind of where we started with the company. Some of our designs early on really had that hand-drawn look. And I think that's what drew a lot of people to our designs because they weren't so crisp and clean. Mm-hmm. They really, truly were. And I think that's something we still kind of, hold special, is that it's truly hand-drawn. And we'll get to more of that in a minute. But as far as inspiration goes, I'm a Texan true and true. So a lot of my art and my design and inspiration comes from Texas, in the atmosphere, the landscapes, the plants, the food, the drink. And so I just kind of am able to gather inspiration and influence, from the things around me in my travels and things. But some of those artists I mentioned earlier, that style is kind of where I kind of honed in. And this was probably, 10 or 11 years ago when they were in the heyday of kind of when hand lettering was really getting going. Mm-hmm. Fred, if you want to speak to that too, inspiration wise,
that hand lettering phase and social media and learning about those guys. And me and Jeb used to go to this conference called Circles Conference where a lot of these hand lettering graphic designers would go and they would speak. And it was just, they would have contests on Instagram, you could post, submit your hand lettering design and you can kind of compete with other people. And it was just kind of the community was small, that everyone kind of slowly got to know each other. And it was just inspiring. And it also just challenged you to get better in your hand lettering. And it wasn't, once we learned image tracing in Photoshop, or not Photoshop, in Illustrator, that kind of really allowed that hand lettering look to continue in to putting on a shirt, putting on a product. So that was really cool. Once we kind of learned a little bit more things, going from, I remember we used to take pictures of our artwork and then upload them, image trace them. And now we have the, iPad, and it's a little bit different now as far as process. But little things like that really allowed us to keep that hand lettered look in a finished design in like Photoshop or Illustrator. So
Yeah, no doubt. Hillary?
I mean, I was trying to think about this earlier, and for me, it's just kind of all over the place. I feel like a lot of times it's when I'm experiencing something not necessarily totally new and fresh and novel that I've never done before or seen before, but just kind of getting out of my usual routine, kind of the rut that you get in. Like, for example, if I've been like working really hard and I just haven't been able to spend a whole lot of time with like my kids or my family. Even honestly, just when I sit down with them and we're playing Legos or what have you, I'll kind of see something in like the colors of the Legos, like a color palette or, it's something that I'm just kind of refreshed and looking at something differently. I'll see things like on a TV show and I'll like pause it and I'm like, oh, that would make a really cool pattern. Or just going somewhere, if we go out to like a coffee shop that we haven't been to in a long time, it's not the totally new, like novel experiences. It's just kind of making sure that I'm not getting stuck in that rut, which for me is usually really a struggle.
Yep.
That routine.
I can see that too. And I think that probably hits home for all of us, because you get and you find inspiration kind of in where you're at. And it doesn't really, sometimes it just hits you, like you were saying, like a TV show, like one of our native pattern designs that we did for 2 years ago, like it was on a Seinfeld episode from like the 90s, and I was like, check out that rug in the background. I paused it and like took a picture of it. I'm like, that is a really cool design pattern, and so we kind of use that as inspiration. But what about you, McKenna? Any design inspiration places that you go to find stuff?
I would say honestly kind of similar experience of it's kind of funny now that I work in design. I send Hillary all the time just pictures of, oh my gosh, look at this font that I saw when I was traveling or driving down the road or anything like that. And I feel like kind of I start to notice like colors and shapes and just things that we can kind of use for inspiration, whether it's in a graphic for an email or whatever it might be. I think I also just really I've always loved kind of landscape photography and I just love nature and being outside. And so I think that kind of plays into the color palette that I normally go with and enjoy using. And so I think kind of all over, I think when I travel, I'll look at different logos of coffee shops or of, wherever I might be and just kind of draw inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, I think, one of our things we want to talk about is like, where are we inspired at? Like, is there a certain location? I think a lot of us have kind of talked a little bit about that, but like places like, Hillary's family, they live in Round Top, Texas. And those of you that are, Texans or know a little bit about what's going on down in Round Top, it's crazy. It's just like this mega, like antique junk, twice a year. I mean, it's the biggest. I mean, people come from all over the country, all over the world, basically to get either design influence or like, for home interiors, landscape, architecture, all, you name it, the design stuff's going on in Round Top. So we've been able to go down there with the Wysong family a couple times. And I'll tell you what, just like digging through old cans and seeing old signs and all that stuff. I mean, you can gather so many inspiration. I take so many pictures. So I think a lot of my inspiration comes from like junking, garage sailing, cool. Junk trips, things like that. Just like you said, McKenna, like lettering, text from the 50s, the 60s, colorways, old logos and stuff. So, I mean, there's so many different places that you can.
Yeah, I mean, I've just always been, I've always seen all the stuff that you kind of bring in, or even your thrifting, you'll tell me, hey, I found this, or like what you're inspired by, or you used to have your old, your blog.
Oh, yeah.
So
JunkieTrinkets.com.
Shout out.
I haven't posted since 2015, but still some cool stuff.
But I remember that all that stuff that, your maps that you collect, all that stuff. Oh, yeah. It's kind of, it's influenced me too, like just seeing it secondhand. Right. You collect them, but then seeing it secondhand for me, it's just like I'm understanding, different landscapes and different things here, antiquing from your thrifting and all your photos. So
yeah,
super cool.
I agree. There's just, I wouldn't say there's one particular place that I get inspiration. It's just more like, it's kind of, and artists that are listening, what we're talking about. You just kind of, it hits you. And then there's sometimes you get that artist block, you run into like those times and it's the worst. So you're just kind of like, can't think of anything. And then sometimes you just need to like unplug.
Keep going. Or keep going. Like even if it's not good, just keep going for sure.
And just kind of, sometimes I find inspiration when we go on vacations, like the mountains where we have no internet. And you're just kind of sitting there going, okay, what are we going to do? You just look around and you start, getting those vibes and stuff. But yeah, it's good. All right. So let's talk about designs that we've done. And then also kind of that feeling and that you get when you see someone wearing a design, or you see one of our designs out in the wild, kind of that feeling that you get.
Well, I'll start.
Okay.
One of my favorite things is really just telling my dad and mom, like, hey, check out this Whataburger design, and
Right.
Hillary or Jeb has sent me photos like, hey, it's on, the side of Whataburger. But that's really my favorite, is like telling my dad, like, hey, I designed that shirt. Like, so, and then one time, like, I never do this normally, but one time we were in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I saw this lady wearing the Wildflowers shirt. I think, Hillary, you designed it?
That was Jeb.
Or Jeb.
Yeah.
And I stopped her and I was like, hey, I work for that company. But that's really the only time I stopped someone to tell. But it was just so weird because I was, I was picking up groceries on a beach cruiser and saw this lady and I was like, I got to stop and tell her. But so those telling my parents and then stopping that lady, those have been some of my favorite moments.
Yeah, it's really fun. I know early on when Brian and I saw a stranger out one day, I think we were at the mall or something. We saw a stranger wearing one of our shirts. We're like, we don't know them. We're like, so that one of our family or friends wearing one of our designs. So that was really, really fun and a cool deal. But yeah, it never gets old. It's always really something. I mean, in the places we've seen shirts, I mean, Carrie and I went to Mexico like 2 years ago. There's people at the resort wearing our shirts. Like, we have no idea who these people are. I have people that my friends always like to text me pictures that they see of people in the airport, like in Alaska, or they run into someone in Hawaii. They always like sharing our story too. So that's always kind of a fun.
Yeah.
I texted you the other day about Taco Chronicles. The shirts were on that Netflix
Taco
show, Chronicles.
Yeah.
And I took a picture and sent it to you.
Yeah, that was awesome. One of my favorite stories, though, we were at a concert. I think Brian was there too. No, I can't remember. It was in Whitewater Sports in New Braunfels. And it was a rowdy show. It might have been Turnpike or like Ryan Bingham or someone. And it was getting rowdy. And I was up in the mix and it was crowded and people were kind of banging around on me and the music was going. It was fun. That's the way I like to see a concert. And this one dude, he turned around. He had a full beer in his hand and he turned around and he got bumped and he spilled his whole beer like on me. And I'm like, dude, I was like so mad. I wasn't going to fight him or anything, but I was like, man, what is going on? And he like turns around. And I was getting ready to go, dude, what's up? And he had like our Drink Texas beer shirt on.
So you can't be mad.
You can't be mad at that point.
I designed that shirt. And he's like, awesome, man. I'm sorry I spilled my beer on you. Like,
immediate best friend.
I'm like, it's all right. So yeah. So that was kind of a fun story of
that's cool.
Had to see that shirt
oh my
too.
gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. We saw someone yesterday at lunch wearing one of our shirts. So that was good. So yeah. Here in Frisco, we see a lot of them just, because our store is here in town. And so we have a lot of really good support, I guess, with the community and the school district and stuff. So
for sure.
Kind of a neat deal to see shirts out. Any you guys have any good stories about seeing stuff out or?
I mean, I see it, or we see it all the time. We'll see it out in the wild, as we say. But,
in the wild.
Usually, Brian and I just kind of like elbow each other and we're like, hey, look, they've got such and such on.
Right.
And we're like, oh, that's cool. So we don't usually say anything. Sometimes if I'm passing them like on, a pathway, I'll be like, nice shirt, and they're like, oh, yeah, thanks. And they
little did they know.
Yeah, I know. But I don't think I have anything as cool as seeing somebody in Florida or that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I'm trying to think. I feel like I see them, just all around, honestly, especially in Frisco. But I remember I was hiking on a trail in Oklahoma with some friends. We did a little camping trip and passed someone on the trail and kind of the same thing. I was like, hey, nice shirt. And it's just kind of fun to see in the wild, as we say. And then one of our part-timers, she also said that she saw someone in Mexico with, I think it was the Monarch shirt on, which is just, crazy all around the world. There's
it's like I said, it doesn't get old. It's really fun. And I'm kind of like you, Hillary. I don't go up and like say, hey, I designed that or do that. It's just kind of fun to see that and know that. Now, my daughter, when she was younger, she'd be like, my daddy designed that shirt. She has no fear of talking, but she doesn't do that much anymore. She's 16, so she plays a little bit more cool now. And one design, the Texas Towns design, that's probably one of our most popular shirts that we've done. And it's kind of been, it's had its little controversies, I guess you could say. And I designed that shirt actually, I guess it was before the company even started. So I got a map together. I got the idea to try and like write out as many Texas towns in a geographical, correct location on the map of Texas. And I was picking places like where I used to live, old rival schools, where I had friends from college from. And so I was just putting in the towns that I liked and knew. And I did this really late at night. I did it all in one night and wrote it all out and didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until about 3 months into our company, Brian's like, remember that design you did of the Texas towns? That would look cool on a shirt. So it's like, okay. And we ended up doing it on a shirt. There's only 187 towns on there, though.
Okay. See, I didn't know the official number.
There's not 187 towns in Texas. There's way more. And so when we started selling that shirt, we did get a lot of feedback from people like, why did you leave such and such town off? Why did you leave such and such?
Yes.
How come you made this town so much bigger than the other? So that's kind of been kind of fun in a way because Texas Humor actually started buying those shirts from us, and they have a huge following. And so anytime they would post that design, like on Instagram or on Twitter, they would get so much backlash, like what towns were on and off and stuff. So I thought that was kind of I don't know. That's just one design that kind of stands out that I know a lot of people wear. And then, some people won't buy it because their town's not on there. So maybe we need to look into adding some towns. But that was a tedious process writing all those towns on the deal. All right. So let's talk about design process. Like, how do we get from a design that maybe is in our head, and how do we get it to a shirt? Like, what's the process for everybody?
Yeah. So I feel like it's taken us a while to kind of get to where we are as far as developing the process. It's kind of been all over the place, especially the more designers and artists that we add to it. It's adding more, kind of more pieces to the puzzle, which is fantastic. And we're able to, knock out a whole lot more stuff, but it's just trying to figure out and make sure that we are getting everything done and not letting anything fall through the cracks. So, what we use as a team is Asana, which some of you may be familiar with. If you're not, it's a project management system. And for us, it's been really instrumental because we've been able to kind of write out the different steps of the process from, let's say, brainstorm, where all of us are kind of dumping ideas. So we may even just write down or type out, cactus with Tumbleweed TexStyles, or buffalo with such and such with text written in it. Anyway, so writing it out, we could sketch it out. Sometimes we just jump straight into kind of a text-based something and have that from Illustrator, whatever it is, but we're all just dumping ideas in there. From there, what we do is we go ahead and we pick what we feel like are the strongest ideas, and then we start cleaning those up and then kind of playing with colors and maybe modifying the designs a little bit. And that's, to me, the most fun part, because getting to work with y'all and actually having the back and forth, that's when I feel like we have the most successful designs.
Well, I think some of our best designs are something that maybe you started, I finished, or I started, you finished, or Fred put, when you get this
like
many sets of eyes on something.
And I've always appreciated that with designing with you all, because it's not like, oh, this is my design. Like, it's always been a collaborative, like it's for Tumbleweed. It's, so yeah, like if, there's been plenty of times where, Jeb, you've started something and maybe I'll clean it up or add text to it.
Or a lot of times.
And vice versa, of just like, hey, or Hillary's great on giving me feedback or giving me fonts to use. And I appreciate it. Like, I'm not like, oh man, like I messed up, or like I need to be, like, it's just like, I appreciate that you're making me a better designer. Right. So I've grown so much even just being on the team. And I love that collaborative, going back and forth on designs, for sure.
Yeah, and one thing, I mean, we started out truly, at least I did, truly on Sketchbook, with a pencil.
Yeah.
And then I'd micron it, and like ink it. And then Fred was teaching me how to scan stuff, like with my phone. He said, oh, there's a scanner app you can do. Okay, cool. So I started doing that and then getting it in Photoshop and that. So, I mean, that process, for 10 plus years, that's how it went for me as far as like the actual design itself. It started with a sketch, an idea, one of those brainstormed, dumped ideas into the Asana or whatever. And then you build it up, I'd ink it, scan it, get in Photoshop, clean it up, texture it, mess around, play with that. But McKenna and I, the last couple of years, we've kind of moved to Procreate on the iPad. You like that, right?
Yes, big fan of Procreate.
It's a big change.
Right. It takes a lot of steps out of the process.
Yeah, too. I think, I would say over the last 9 months or so, almost everything I've done is exclusively on the iPad. So my sketchbooks, I have stacks of them at home, and I haven't cracked one open in months. I've gone pretty much straight iPad, Procreate, because you can, with the Apple Pencil, you can draw out stuff and
a lot of different effects.
Yeah,
Right.
and for those of you that are interested, I little pro tip: get a matte. I like the matte screen protector on the iPad.
yes.
That makes a huge difference if you want to draw on the iPad for
we
sure.
have that paper.
The paper.
Yeah, the
paper
Yeah,
light.
I
the
think
Paperlike is
that's-
super
yes.
good too. It just feels like you're drawing.
It has a little
in
bit of a
sketchbook.
texture
Yeah.
to it, so
Right.
it's not like you're drawing it. It's like your pencil's sliding around on there. It
Yeah.
actually has a little bit of grip and feels pretty good. Fred, I know you're pretty good with Illustrator and stuff. So once we do get it, that kind of the design, like the final stage, a lot of people don't realize, before we send it to like the screen printer, they've got to kind of have it in a good vector style.
Yeah, so and kind of, because my background a little bit in like branding and logo making, all that stuff had to be in Illustrator. Most of the final files end up being in Illustrator. So I've just kind of learned to kind of live within that sphere. So, and for me, I just find it easier to, play with fonts and different things and adjust things in Illustrator. So as quickly as I can get into Illustrator, I'm happy because, it's what I would say I'm best at is an Illustrator. So yeah, whether it's taking your drawings, Jeb, and scanning them in or uploading them to Illustrator and live tracing them and then tweaking them there, it's just the quickest for me. So I love Illustrator. I mean, I have Procreate, but I'm not in it as much as I should be in it. But I'm in Illustrator way more.
Illustrator's your
Yeah,
go-to.
it's my go-to for sure.
That's my weakness. I need to learn more about how to do that. But for sure, I mean, the good thing about our team is that somebody brings something to the table. That if I need help with something, someone else needs, we can all kind of bounce ideas and work together. I think that's what makes our group special and kind of the things that we punch out. Colors are also fun, like kind of picking out colors. Hillary, you want to talk about like colors and like trends and like how much do we follow that, what the trends are, and then kind of what we want to do and kind of how we pick colors and stuff for mocks and stuff.
So, I mean, I feel like every year we end up looking at Pantone to see what the forecast is. But we don't necessarily usually follow it always.
Right.
We might take like a color, like the color of the year, and have a little pop of it here and there. But a lot of times it's not necessarily on brand for us. So what we try and do is make sure that it stays true to who we are as a company and as a brand. But we kind of have the same kind of color palettes that we kind of like to play in. We have a palette set up in Illustrator in a file where we kind of pick from the same like 20 to 30 type of colors.
Right.
And work.
Well, we like that consistency, I guess. And I think something cool that we did is right before we opened the store. It was probably about 2.5 years ago. We kind of came up and we decided we need to really truly make a branding guide.
Right.
And it was before you were here, McKenna, but we kind of got together and kind of chose a set of colors that were going to be the Tumbleweed colors. And it's not necessarily colors that are going to be on our shirts and garments and stuff, but it's more for our branding, our email marketing, what our store was going to look like, the colors we were going to use. So anything that goes out or on our website, we really do try and, you want to talk about that, kind of how we created that?
Yeah. So we sat down, we kind of had a brainstorm session thinking about what fits. We started with our red because that was what the logo was.
Right.
So that was kind of our base. And then thinking, okay, well, what could complement that? What
Accents
works with
and
that?
Stuff, yeah.
And then slowly making it to where the red was the accent as opposed to like everything is red.
Right.
So that's where we came from, the kind of that blue, that navy blue that we use for a whole lot of stuff. We also have a super dark blue that's almost like a black,
right?
To use as accents, a gold, and then like a gray, almost like a cool gray too, I think is what it ends up being. But those are the primary kind of colors that we stick with. I know that for all of our like online assets, we have templates. And then if you open up those templates, you have basically the palette in there. So all you have to do is use your color picker and then automatically use those. We have the same thing for fonts. Like we have the same 3 to 4 kind of fonts that we usually try and pull from. Sometimes we get outside of that, to kind of fit a different mood or a different style. But those are also on our branding guide as well.
Yeah, I think that was it took a lot of the thought out of some stuff because, I mean, before we were kind of all over the board, like just colors we were kind of liking.
Right.
We kind of tried to tie the red in, and course, Brian, his background is really like branding and marketing and stuff. And he was like, guys, we need to like tighten this up. We need to really come in and what fonts are we going to use? Okay. When are we going to use our logo? How are we going to use our logo? Kind of what bigger companies do. And so it was fun that when we finally got that branding guide, it kind of took a lot of the thought out. And so we kind of look at it, and it was, as long as we use those colors in the fonts and stuff, it all kind of brings that.
Feels cohesive.
Yeah. And was that easy for
so
you when you came
for
in,
sure.
McKenna, like seeing that we had that kind of in place, I guess?
Yes,
helpful?
For sure. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. Coming in as the newest designer to the team, I think kind of getting to learn the Tumbleweed brand and what does that look like, and I think having that guide. I mean, Hillary sent me a designer resource that had the links to all of that, and I just pulled that up every single day and went back to it. And so I think it was a great tool for me to kind of learn the branding colors and the fonts that we use, and kind of get to an easier transition onto the team, I think. And designing for Tumbleweed.
And it just streamlines, like you can focus more on the design. You have all that other stuff ready to go. You know what it's supposed to be. And then you can just design, if we're doing t-shirts or any product that we're designing. So it's nice for that too.
Yeah. And I mean, with shirt design and product design, like Hillary kind of said, we do look at forecasts and kind of like see what trendy colors might be. But, we also look at what our customers like and what colors have been popular with what we've sold in the past. And then colors that there's some colors that just don't do as well as others. There's certain, things that don't look well. There's a lot of women that won't wear a certain color because it washes me out, or it doesn't look, so we have to gauge that and kind of decide what's going to be the best fit, as far as product, and clothing and things like that, as far as the colors go. So I love colors. I always think it's fun to create, multiple mock-ups of one design on different colors, and kind of all of us kind of get together and kind of choose what we think is going to be the best fit. That's one of my favorite things.
I feel like I've had to learn to work with colors. Typically, I wear all black.
Yeah, Fred's like the man in black.
I'm not super colorful.
He's
I'm wearing a colorful flannel, but normally I'm wearing.
Fred's waiting for us to do cardigans.
Yes, cardigans.
Cardigans and flannels.
I'm not gonna lie. There's been times where I'm just like, okay, black t-shirt. Let me see if I can get this design on a black t-shirt, because I love black t-shirts. But
well, that's how I am with navy. So almost every design I do, I'm like, I put it on the navy.
Straight to the navy.
That's my favorite color, and it looks best on me, I think. So that's what I always do.
No, but that's definitely helped me learn to like, okay, let me try. And even like women's colors and more feminine colors, like, using those in mock-ups and all that. So it's been helpful to kind of see the design in a different, how is this going to work on a lighter pink shirt, or how is this going to work? Yeah, it totally changes. It changes the design. So yeah, it's been good for growth for me.
Yeah, this has been good. And then wrapping up, I want to kind of go around and talk about kind of some of the things that maybe how you've grown, some things that you've learned. And I know some of those things have been mentioned already today, but maybe if there's something that kind of stands out, like something that you've learned or the ways you've grown as an artist, just, with working with our team. Hillary, kick it off.
Oh man. I feel like I've just grown so much. At least I do. Hopefully other people, can see it too as the journey continues. But I feel like as an artist, I've grown because I've honestly seeing you guys work, being able to kind of be part of that and bouncing things back and forth has really made me a better artist, and just widening my horizons, being able to see more, kind of develop more of a style, but being open to other things outside of what I would normally like my go-to. But then also I feel like the technology, because it's ever changing, it's always something new. I feel like there does not go a week does not go by without me having to look up, okay, how do I do this? How do I solve this problem?
Yeah, totally.
Something's changed in Adobe, or maybe I just don't know how to do it. So I'm figuring that out, and then doing my best to make sure that I share that information. Like McKenna mentioned, we have that designer resource where I try and
and you do a good job at that for sure, sharing that and helping us for sure.
Awesome.
Yes.
Good.
Fred, you learn anything?
So much. So like I said, the collaboration has been huge for me. But also I work on a lot of the shirts and stickers and things like that, but even being able to work on some of the like Whataburger or Dr. Pepper, like that has been, I've learned so much from just kind of seeing like the things that they ask for us or how we need to design for them. That I'm learning like their branding, they have branding guides and they have parameters that we need to design around along our design parameters. So adjusting, sometimes as artists, we can just be like, oh, this, like, I want this.
Yes.
But that's more art, and design is different. Design is, you have, other goals and other things that you need to focus on. So I feel like it's definitely refined my design thinking on like, okay, I need to solve this problem within these parameters. So I think just over the years, I've just keep refining just my skills as a designer, separate as an artist.
Yeah. McKenna, you got anything that you feel like you've grown? I know you've only been here about a year or so, or a little bit over, but
yeah, I mean,
a lot. I know.
so many things. Yes. I think, you guys touched on a lot of the things that I was going to say, especially with kind of what Fred was talking about, art versus design and kind of how those two interact. And I think especially working within a company, kind of keeping in mind, marketing and designing for the customer, and kind of getting to, have strategy within that, or brands, whether it's custom work or whatever that looks like. I think, whether it's me designing that or just getting to watch you guys do that, and kind of learn from, the ways that you guys kind of go about that. And I think this has just been the best opportunity to get to sit with 3 designers and just kind of watch each of you have your own unique style, but are all so talented and skilled. And so I think I've just learned a ton, whether it's technical or just, like a specific skill, or whether it's just kind of getting to watch the brainstorm process and kind of how you guys go about becoming inspired and what that looks like. And so I think as kind of a newer designer, I'm just taking in all the time, asking you guys probably more questions than you ever expected I would. But getting to learn so much, and just I'm excited to continue getting to learn from you guys.
And I think that it's so obvious how much you've grown. Like, it's just, I feel like you accelerated, and it's just like you took off. And you said you ask a lot of questions. You ask great questions. You ask the questions that you should be asking. And then once you've asked a question, you don't ask it again. So you're like, I feel like you are a really good learner. You take things upon yourself, and then like you have that raw talent, and it's just being refined now. So you're doing awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
As far as my growth, I mean, I think I've grown a ton because, I used to be kind of what I would consider more of a fine artist, like trying to draw more realistic type things, landscapes, realistic style paintings. That was really my thing. And I never really considered myself a designer. Still kind of, I don't know. I guess I've designed enough t-shirts I can kind of call myself
I think
a
we all
designer.
kind of live in both worlds. Sometimes we have
Yeah.
our artist hat on, and sometimes we have our designer hat on.
That's a
But
good point.
for
But
sure.
with like technology, I think that's one of the biggest places I've grown. I didn't know anything about Photoshop, never opened it up hardly ever before. I was always interested in it. I think I took a couple, little classes and stuff on it, but didn't really get very far. But I just think learning the business side of it too has been huge. Just like what you were saying, Fred, like certain brands and like what they want and how it has to be and the colors. I mean, they're super strict about that stuff. And I was always kind of like, oh yeah, that probably doesn't, but like, no, like it's
like there for a purpose.
It's there. And you kind of think it's silly, but they're like, oh, well, they're protecting their brand, and they got these in place for a reason. So that was kind of something that I really have, learned a lot about. And then also, I guess, just the whole design world and fashion industry and that kind of stuff, just all the different things. I mean, we've learned so much. I mean, because we knew nothing starting out. And so it's just kind of jumping in and really, Brian has done a great job kind of leading us and getting us on track and getting us prepared to be able to do things and in our design and making sure that it falls in place with what the industry wants and what the trends are, and kind of like really doing it the right way. It took us a little while to do it the right way. I think we were kind of all over the place early on. We had drop boxes. Well, we still got Dropbox is still a mess. But it's a little bit better than it used to be. But we used to have stuff all over the place. But now we're kind of refining and pulling it all together. But I've learned so much from all you guys and just doing this over the years. And it's been such a fun ride, and looking forward to the future. And I mean, it's definitely grown as an artist. I am kind of looking forward to the time where I may be able to get back into some more painting and have some time to like kind of do some more of the fine art stuff. But this has been awesome doing that with you guys. Anybody else have anything else that they want to mention design wise?
I don't think so.
Any advice to any, just like a real quick little, like
Yeah.
just maybe a snippet for a designer that might be listening that's
For
just
me,
getting started?
I'm a teacher. I teach next to Jeb. And a lot of times kids are like, I don't know how to draw. And if you are interested in design or art, like anyone can do it. You just got to practice. Like I literally didn't, me and Jeb didn't know anything about Photoshop or Illustrator or anything like that. And YouTube is a good resource.
Oh yeah.
And you can just literally just practice. If you draw every day, you're going to get better.
Oh, for sure.
Regardless. So yeah, if you're interested in design or art, just draw, really. Just draw.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, Fred and I teach the youth of America every day, and we do get a lot of random questions about how people can't draw and stuff. But like, the resources are endless now. I tell
That's
my kids
so
that all the
true.
day. I'm like, I'm not the best person at teaching you how to draw a human eye, but on YouTube, there are hundreds of videos on how to draw the perfect eye. And if you just do it a few times and do it, you'll be way better than me in probably a week. So the resources are out there.
Right.
Keep pushing. Try and be creative. Try to be unique.
Don't compare yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we compare. For me, even when we talk about hand lettering, I would compare myself to these hand letterers or designers that have been doing it for years, and it's like, well, yeah, you're not as good as them. They've been doing it for 20 plus years.
Right.
Like, give yourself some time. So give yourself some grace in that.
I think people they look at other artists and it stifles them. They're like, oh, I can't even. It freezes them. They can't. They don't want to push. It's like more, we've heard, some of the guys we used to listen to on podcasts and stuff. They're like, it's every day, create something every day, put it out there, create, and it's just, that would be my 2 cents. Anybody else have anything else? We'll wrap this sucker up.
Yeah, I would say one of the things would be to be open to feedback, I think, and not be too emotionally invested in something, because I know I've had some designs that I just try so hard to make something work, and I'll show it to one of y'all or even somebody in the office, and I'm like, what do you see? Like, is this working? And they're like, yeah, I don't think so. And so just being able to let it go and move on to the next idea. And then tying into that, I would say allowing the feedback from, if you have a marketing team or a sales team, making sure that you're using them as a resource so that you know what is going to be the most successful, because they're going to have a better insight into like what is selling the best as far as like designs or colors or what have you. So I know that a lot of times as designers, we bump heads with those marketing or those salespeople, but really the beauty is when we're able to like work together and collaborate on those things. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Good
that's
stuff.
so true.
So, well, guys, I've enjoyed this conversation. I love talking about art, love talking about design and stuff. Can't beat it. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. You guys have a great week, and we're out.
All right. See y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Adios.